Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Masters of the World. Now, the reason that I've decided to do this video is because not many people actually really know how this game works, especially in terms of the economy. So that's the particular tab that I'm going to be dealing with today, and also the industry tab, the industry, economics, and energy tab. As you can see here. Um, Now I hope this video sheds light on these particular facets of the game. If you want me to continue, please let me know. Um, but I'm uh, going to primarily focus on the currency tab of the game, and also the debt and the taxation tab. The reason why I'm not going to bother with the budget is because the budget is fairly self-explanatory. It's all there, set out and in the window. It's just your total expenditure, and it's basically there to give you an idea of where you're guiding your country. With all that said, let's continue. So, obviously, the civil service, or it's not the civil service in this game, but I like to call it the civil service just to make it easier. Yeah, in this particular window, this is where you can control all your wages of all your state employees of within the state of China. Now, this particular tab is important because because you need to obviously maintain a good standard of living for those working and living in your country, but you need to also bear in mind that that the country is essentially a business, and like any business, you need to keep your overheads as low as possible. So when managing your budgets for your civil service, um, always try and keep those wages as low as possible. That's not to say you can't. That's not to say you shouldn't provide a better standard of living for your people. But obviously, this is a game, so therefore, I'm gonna give you the best possible solution to basically achieving at it. And I know most of you are going to say that, well, that's profit of the obvious. Um, I'm just gonna give you a guide to how I play the game and what works for me. So, the second tab is the currency tab. And this is particularly important because it shows inflation and the key interest rate, the exchange rate of all the major powers such as the United States and the euro and the yen. And obviously, you need to keep that figure as stable as possible to maintain a strong currency. Now, I should say at this point that the Chinese, as in real life, intentionally have devalued their currency to encourage more investment, and because it's cheaper to obviously set up business in their country. Now, I'm not going to go into the exact science of this because this is not the purpose of this video. But I'm just going to basically outline how inflation works and how you need to obviously maintain an acceptable level as far as the modern state typically have their inflation at. Um, for example, it's been a long-standing policy of the UK government to roughly have it at 3%. Um, um, I may be completely wrong in that regard. I should really go and check that before saying that, obviously. But I think it's around 3%, which is what you can see here. That's commonly accepted as as the uh, the sweet spot of inflation, basically. And the way inflation works is obviously when a country is spending money, and there's a lot of money being spent on certain on certain items, and there's a lack, or there is a certain demand for a particular item, such as basic amenities. Let's say, for example, the UK, the way they work this particular proper inflation out is they take the 100 most used and bought items, and then work out the average cost of each item, and then from that they work out the average across the board of living. And that's not necessarily to work out. That won't necessarily give you inflation straight away. Inflation is also tied to the financial sector. The key interest rate I was discussing a bit earlier, that determines at what percentage the banks can trade with one another, and that also it has an effect on inflation as a driver, if you will, because if there's more money in the economy, then the money that is already existing in that economy is then devalued as a whole. Whereas if people are saving their money, and there's less money needing, or there's less demand, then there'll be less money to be printed as a whole. This is a very basic explanation, and therefore you get a period of deflation, which can also be very bad in both instances. For example, if you have too much inflation, your currency then becomes too weak, and it becomes worthless. And a great example of this is the financial crash of Germany in the 20s and 30s. Do you remember those pictures of workers wheeling the barrels of money that were basically worthless, and you would need that barrel of money just to pay for a loaf of bread? That was because there was so much of it it became completely worthless. Now that's a very extreme example of inflation, and we haven't seen the likes of it since, and hopefully never will. Although that's very unlikely. At some point during the course of time, that will happen again, obviously. But that's just an example. Deflation is it's fairly difficult to explain in terms of how well, you know, if I'm not buying more, then prices will go down to encourage me to buy more. Um, 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 and therefore, if prices keep going down, then you know it's a good thing, right? Wrong. It's not. If prices go too far down, then then people won't be manufacturing as much goods and services because nobody effectively is buying them. So then your currency goes into a state of deflation because there's not not much need for money because everyone's saving it. Um, so it's trying to strike that balance. With that said, let's carry on with this basic tutorial of the economy tab. So in this particular tab, we have taxation, and as everyone knows, taxation is ways and means for government to gain money for goods and services delivered to the general public as a whole. Now, a good example for this is um, uh, because I live in the UK, the NHS. The NHS is a massive organisation that needs a lot of money, and the way the government sustain this organisation is through taxation and national insurance and blah blah blah. In that same vein. Sorry about that. So so you're gonna say to me, yes, we already know that, Kyle. How does that affect the economy of the game? Well, obviously, if you're going to put up, I don't know, say for instance, airline tax to 18%, because I think it's at 17% already. Yes, it is. Um, then that's going to impact the airline sector of your country, because more money has to be shelled out for to put that plane up in the air, and people will have to feel will have to shell out more money for the tickets, obviously. That will obviously um, make people less inclined to fly, which then will cause the if it keeps going on for too long, the industry as a whole to be less competitive with the rest of the world. Therefore, the trade of the service in terms of the rest of the world will China's contribution to that world market goes down, and therefore the economy as a whole suffers. I will explain this a lot more in greater detail in later videos about trade deficits and trade balances as a whole. But I'm just trying to give you an example of how taxation needs to be considered carefully when trying to balance your books. So right, so yeah, and also if you say for instance did a tax or increase the tax on inheritance, that means that the rich will obviously no longer want to stay in the country, because it's not beneficial for the wealthy to avoid um, such attacks, so they'll move away. Sorry about that long, long pause there. I was just trying to get my thoughts in order. Um, so that's just one of the many ways that that tax can help or hinder your economy. Obviously, if the reverse were true, in terms of if you lower tax, then you encourage these things. You encourage these sectors. So you encourage the more wealthy of the world to come to your country and invest more. Now, right. Where are we now? We're in debt. Okay, so debt is also very important, as is most things on this tab. It basically displays all the current debt you have with certain countries. So, for example, at the moment, these are the list of lenders that we have uh, um, that actually we owe some money to, I think, although we don't owe any money to Argentina. Um, but we do to Australia. Okay, so this particular tab is important because say if you're gonna have to basically forego your budget deficit for a while, and you're gonna have to take on some debt to support the services that you provide currently in your country. Now, this particular window is important because you can go to a country and say, "Hey, Australia, I know you've been lending me some money at the moment, but can you please lower the interest rate of our next loan? And if you've got a positive relationship with said country, they will most likely do it because they obviously want to foster foster such a relationship. However, they will stop at a point and say, no, China, because we think the loan that we've provided you is cheap enough. You know, so in that sense, they will sort of keep their own interests at, in mind in terms of when negotiating, which which is what I really love about this game. You know, it tries to keep the whole ethos of international politics and politics in general as real as possible. And I've got to say, with a few exceptions, um, I would really like to see Eversim create another game. Obviously, more details. And that's the only reason why I would actually want to see another game, because I think there's everything's there, just needs a little bit more tweaking. I mean, I haven't actually played the expansion yet, but I hear from or I've read rather from the blurb that you can do some cool stuff like um, manipulate certain events in terms of, you know, encourage a destabilization of another country, um, um, but which is expanded obviously from this particular game, because obviously you can talk to particular terrorist groups, and if you fund them and if you don't get caught, um, that will inevitably lead to a destabilization of said country. But that's going off topic. Back to the debt. Sorry about that. Back to the debt. Now, you want to obviously try not to get into a situation where you have to take out a loan with countries and things like that. But obviously, because China and other countries' services and people are so vast and things like that, you will inevitably have to forego financial stability in, if that's the right word, not financial stability, but financial solvency to deliver said services. Because if you then decide, okay, we're getting to the state is getting too large in terms of how much it needs to support its people, the people will become accustomed to the level of involvement that you have within the country, and they'll say, well, why are you taking that away from us? Just like in real life, and like in Greece, for example. And by the way, it's an absolutely terrible thing that's befallen the Greek people in terms of their economic situation. But I'm not here to obviously discuss the Greek situation. I just wanted to say, I feel really sorry for those guys, and for them to go through financial difficulties that they are going through at the moment. I couldn't imagine, being the new Prime Minister and saying, okay, we've got to go to Europe now, and then trying to get our debt down. It's a difficult task, most certainly. But that's another video for another day. So, yeah. And now I'm going to quickly move on to the environment. I'm actually just going to deal with the industry tab here, because it's relatively the same for each tab. The actions are the same. So, for example, exoneration. So you can exonerate a particular sector from paying taxes, and that is to encourage, as it says here, a particular sector to foster more and to grow more, because they will have less taxes to worry about, and that could be good in the sense that you could you can now have a better chance of competing with the rest of the world. So in that case, that is pretty cool. And obviously, embargoes are obviously lifting embargoes for certain countries. Subsidies are, as you say, and as you can probably guess, is a particular subsidy for a particular sector, and that's to help it compete on the world stage. Because if I can find the particular I don't. So I'm going to say aeronautic plane construction, basically. And I'll say wild information. Okay, so that's that's their trade balances and whatnot. Now let's look at ours. Now ours is on the way up as a production of world as a percentage of oh god, it's on the way up from in terms of how much we're producing um in terms of the world. Um, we got there in the end, and yeah, sometimes this will be so to get that percentage up. What we'll need to do is say, okay, right, I want to subsidize that industry, and I want to subsidize it for about 20 million, say. So that 20 million will inevitably make that percentage go up, and therefore our sector will flourish, uh, and um, and hopefully become a world leader in terms of production. So that's always good to keep in mind. And also, I will say at this point, in terms of when you're negotiating economic deals with a particular nation, it is always wise to come to this particular window to see what they need and what they need and what they're producing. Um, when negotiating a particular material or a particular product. Um, yeah, I've made that mistake in the past where I haven't actually bothered to look, and it's not been that great. I can tell you, you could land yourself into serious hot water. Um, Now, the only exception that I will probably say at this point is go. Let's go to the energy tab here, and let's say obviously we've got all the same stuff as we did here with the industry um, tab, but you know I'm just going to take you through the construction tab and the importance of trying to have a sustainable energy market. Um, so obviously, as you can imagine, having a sustainable energy market is important because you're less likely to pay for the energy that you need, pay exorbitant amount of money for the energy you need, and therefore you can be self-sustainable. Depending on of course, on the minerals and fossil fuels that you actually have in the country. Obviously, if you don't have a lot of oil in the country or you don't have a lot of gas, then you're pretty much, for a lack of a better phrase, screwed. Um, and then it is up to you to then try and get that price down as much as possible. Um, Obviously, you will need to search for certain resources, such as oil and oil um, deposits. So if I say here, I want an oil well, um, and that's fine, and that's all good, and we'll position, and we'll get off the word screen. God, I've opened up too much now. I've got to be quick because I'm probably running out of space. And I say, okay, right, I need to analyze. So it's analyzing, and it's an average production capacity. And we're gonna try and look for a um, high deposit average if I can towards the end of the video. Very weak, so that's not good. Very weak, so that's also not good. Very weak. Oh my god, this could go horribly wrong. Very weak. Very weak. So assuming you can actually find a particular very weak. Cool, blimey, this could actually go terribly wrong. Very weak. Very weak. Oh my god, this could be terrible. Come on, you gotta try and think. Very weak. Very weak. Oh my god. So there's a roundabout here that we're gonna have a good yield. I'm gonna try and find that particular part now, because I'm gonna try not to. Very weak. Where is that particular deposit that I found earlier on? Oh my gosh. Very weak. Was that rich? Was that rich? Weak. Oh no. Very weak. Oh god, no. Where was that oil deposit? I can't think. Was it near Beijing? Average, yes, it was. Okay, so I've built a oil well now, and that's going to get me some oil. And you know, that's also, like, you know, very good for long-term prospects. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this first part of Masters of the World Geopolitical Simulator, and I hope to see you next time, where I'm going to be covering the rest of the tabs and buttons, basically the rest of the UI. Yeah, please subscribe and like and share. Until next time, I've been Strategical Gamer.